So, hello everybody. We are here today to start a new month with the Open Web Sandbox. And we are joined by Yassine for an AMA about creative coding. So thank you, Yassine, for joining us today. Before jumping to the topic, I will just give a quick introduction to creative coding for the people that might not be very familiar with it. So creative coding is a kind of computer programming that instead of aiming at creating something functional, it uses coding to create something expressive like art, generative art, and all installations, projections, sound art, and all kinds of art that can be expressed through coding. And this particular use of coding started in the 1960s, but it was around 1968 that groups like Compass 68, basically a group of history students that, history of art students that started messing up with coding, started experimenting more with it, and they achieved international recognition through exhibitions. And now creative coding is very popular, and Yassine is trying to bring this to near through through curaDAO, which is a DAO, which is a project that is aiming to help and support coders and artists to create their NFT projects. So now I'm going to leave the floor to Yassine that will tell us more about curaDAO and coding.
Thank you. I'll go on and share my screen. Yeah, let's give it a second. Yeah, thanks for. Can you see my screen? Yeah, yeah, should work. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, thanks for allowing me to share our ideas. I'm one of the people that's building Cura. That started as a personal project around generative art and creative coding on NEAR protocol, but then evolved into a creative coding platform on top of NEAR. And we're just trying to have a place for ideas and creativity to prosper and just experiment with art and code, which makes sense now that we're still early in the NFT run. So it's currently me, Moatam, Ashraf, and Lucia that are helping me out. Lucia is helping out with the design, and Ashraf and Moatam are helping me out with the development of the smart contracts in the front end. And yeah, I'll just move on to the first slide. So the way, how do I fix this? Okay, so the way I see it, creative coding, the way we see it, creative coding can opens a lot of possibilities in terms of right now you have NFTs that are maybe images or a piece of audio. It's kind of static, let's say. So when you introduce creative coding, you can do some you can have some new ideas, and you can try to, for example, bring together a community around the creative coding project. This is one example of a project that is on art blocks on Ethereum, and we just did an example to kind of deploy it on NEAR to make sure that it works, to have something like this. But what we're trying to do is just like to use the code to make the art and use that to bring together communities around the projects, and allow then the people that are collecting to curate this project, and the collectors to participate. This is nice, but we're trying to add some extensions to it, because right now NFTs on NEAR, but I would say in general, it's really about the images that are deployed maybe on Airwave or on Filecoin, and it's a bit static at the moment. So we're trying to really bring in artists that want to actually use the blockchain as a medium. The first thing we're trying to do is to just have customizable smart contracts that can allow not only to deploy the NFT, but also to have a market, for example, with an NFT. But it's one of the first extensions we built to have not only the NFT but the market, the bits, and the royalties with it. So in this example, like that you don't only have NFT, but you can also decide that you want to bid on it, and that comes with the NFT. So it's not like you have to register it on an external market or anything like that. You can just deploy it on Near as one contract. So it kind of gives a lot of ownership to the artists that are making this. So this kind of we're building the first pieces, the fundamentals, let's say, but you could do even more than that. So you can, as an artist, you really just want to use smart contracts and creative code as a medium. So you might want to have a different type of distribution model. You might decide that you want to pause the minting of a creative coding project. So we're also implementing those functionalities. And you might in the future even want to have these NFTs acting as tokens, giving you access to things. Or you might want to launch like a social token that brings all your projects together. You might want to see analytics of these projects. So there is a lot of things you can do as a creative coder on top of just minting an NFT as an image on a platform. So what we did so far is a couple of smart contracts that are open source and you can find under our organization on GitHub. You can also try some of the stuff I talked about at curaDAO. There is an NFT and a market contract that we built so far. These contracts are supposed to be flexible, give ownership, and go beyond the minting, as I said. So on the NFT side, we're kind of just trying to stick to the standard on Near. And just adding what we need in terms of like creative coding. But on the market side, it's something you still don't see that much in there. We're just integrating the market with the NFT, so you can have the bids within the NFT, the asks, auctions. You can decide that you want to do an auction on a certain NFT, or you want to drop it. So, and all of these NFT contracts are deployed as their own. So from our front end, you're just supposed to be able to deploy them on the Near blockchain and have also front end for the users to mint them and collect them. Yeah. Then that brings us to the design studio. So what we're working on now is to really allow the creators to go in and tweak the NFT and tweak the market, decide how they want to deploy it, what they want to deploy, how it should be, like what timing, maybe they want to deploy it each 1,000 blocks, a new NFT can be minted, or each 1,000 blocks, a new auction starts for the next NFT, and the next NFT is just generated automatically in the contract. So there's a lot of creative ideas, and we're just trying to like build a front end that serves the creative coder and helps them bring their code, but also add a new layer to it, so make it also a living organism as a smart contract. So yeah, we're building this studio. There is a studio for creators with parameters, stats, functionality, and interaction. And on the other side, on the collector side, we also want different collectors to have, we want different artists to have different front ends. So they need to be able to have teamable components and have and don't think too much about the data. So they just need to be able to bring their style also. So it can be all the same front end because different artists have different tastes. So this is where we're starting from. And on top of that, the next steps are to have a curation, which is where cura comes from. Cura is also an Italian word that means just taking care of, in a way almost like taking care of someone, taking care of something. On top of these NFTs, once these NFTs are minted and once these NFTs are deployed for the different artists, we want to start having galleries. So collectors can showcase their NFTs, but it doesn't have to be that you see all the NFTs. The collector has to be able to pick and decide, I want to show this, because this is, I don't know, this month I want to show these 9 NFTs I own, or and for other collectors to be able to explore others collectors NFTs, and for the collector himself to be able to see that they are in certain galleries. So all of these things, and on top of that, also having an explorer that is a bit like OpenSea, so that you can just see, okay, these are all the things that are minted all over these smart contracts that creative coders have deployed, and to be able to control. So the one thing with that doesn't really fit the current NFT model is that these type of NFTs usually have controls also. So they are made with JavaScript, and they're made maybe with a library like 3GS or something, and you can actually go in and play with them, and you can go in and change them. So even thinking that you might even have just one NFT, but it looks different for each account that sees the NFT. So you need to be able to integrate that too, and to curate that so that you can actually have in the smart contract all the parameters to curate it, and someone else can come and curate it, not based on your ownership, but also on whatever model the creator decides. Then, yeah, I think it's last slide. Coming to the fork. So we built this open source. We're building this open source as really just a set of tools. So we're building the smart contract. We're building the front end that I talked about. We're building the hooks that kind of bring these things together so they get the data from the blockchain. We are starting to explore building the GraphQL, the graph that now that is available on Near, to integrate that too. And we just trying to create kind of an ambient of experimentation. We just want people to kind of come and say, I just want to fork this and make something my own. We still want like creators to be market makers, easily bootstrap their media project, so they need to be able to just come and not go through us to deploy their ideas on Near. We want them to explore new novel use cases for new ways to do it, because at the end, NFTs are more than what they look. I would say there's a long way. There's a lot of creativity that's going to come, I think, and there's a lot of creative coders that before didn't have way to monetize their creative codings that now are going to be like, okay, this works. I want to experiment with it, so I want to play with it. So different directions this can go. We want to keep it transparent and open. So we put out all our discussions in our libraries. We have a lot of documentation we are writing. In the future, we might want to integrate different media types. We started with Creative Code because we think it's a good way to bring communities together around projects. And yeah, we want to become like kind of an incubator of ideas, I would say, and just give back and have people fork in our projects or giving back to our projects if they feel like it, and just come up with, yeah, all the creative ideas I guess we can come up with now, because I think it's still early, and like kind of narrowing it down to just one use case, it's not going to be enough. So I think this was my last slide. Yeah, that was my last slide. Thank you for listening. And yeah, we're looking. So I was saying about the team. We're looking for people more on the community side. The team I talked about is mostly on the dev side. We still don't have anyone that's helping out with reaching out to artists or just helping us find beta testers, and so all of this side I just started now with this kind of presentation to just find people that might be interested in supporting us. So yeah, if you have anyone, or if you yourself want to reach out to me, feel free to do so. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Yassine, for your
thank you. Thanks.
I have a question, which is like, how did it come about, the idea of starting off this project? Maybe you have a background in arts. How did you get into creative coding?
Yeah, so for me personally, I've been doing coding in general for startups in Berlin for 4 years. And then about 2 years ago, I kind of was tired of it and started exploring a bit more. Like, I like art. I want to kind of like bring the code to the art. So I started trying out generative art projects, machine learning model projects, simple like canvas projects, browser like 3JS, P5JS, like creative coding tools. And I just liked it. I felt like it was more of me, and it was like more what I wanted to do. So just using code to express and not only in this kind of like we need to build a front end or we need to put together the same components all the time, but just really exploring what you can do with it. Because I feel at the end, so far there was no way to monetize it. There was no way to even just bring people, I think, around it. You know, even when I was doing it a year ago, I was mostly making the prints and selling them in Berlin directly. So it was really still, I had to kind of turn this thing that was completely just digital and code. I had to print it and then make it analog and then go and sell it. So I feel like these things are going to be a bit cut off, and you're going to start seeing, you see it already, but you think it's going to be even more. You're going to see a lot of creative coders just playing around with the smart contracts. And we just want to support them. We just want to launch our own projects too. And we want to be this, yeah, I would say an incubator of ideas, just like work with artists, have artists being able to deploy their own smart contracts, their own front ends, still have the possibility to integrate with other markets. So it's not, we're not building our own NFT standard, we're just extending what's there. But yeah, I have mostly a background in coding, and lately in the last 2 years, I would say more on creative coding and just using code for creative endeavors.
Okay, cool. I see that we have a couple of questions, so I'm going to share them with you. The first one is, what do you believe would be the most integral low-level and high-level language that a beginning coder can learn that would give them a distinct advantage in the new ecosystem?
High level. What we work with on the smart contract side is assembly script. I think assembly script is friendly, let's say, for the people we are. For me, for the people we are targeting, for the creative coders, it's friendly. And it's developer friendly. We want the creative coders also to be able to put their hands on the code. We want them to understand what the code is doing. I feel like I tried my hand on Rust. It's definitely right now, if you're doing financial things on here, you're definitely just going to see Rust. I feel like for more creative projects, which is also a project I did a few months ago on one of the near school boot camps, assembly script allows you a bit more freedom and more playing around, and also a bit more, like if you come from JavaScript or TypeScript, you're going to easily pick it up. From a high level point of view, I don't know, our front ends are in React and React components, React hooks. Pretty much, I think all our stack is mostly TypeScript or TypeScript kind of languages. So yeah.
Okay.
If you mean on creative coding, I would say P5 is one of the. Canvas Sketch, there is a big library in GitHub that's Canvas Sketch, where you can use like P5, 3JS, and just the canvas commands of the browser to make things. So yeah.
Okay, so passing on to the second question, can you please tell us more about the project opportunity in the Open Web Sandbox?
Yes, we are looking for a community manager. So far, I've been the one just like pulling the strings and just trying to reach out to people and creating pools within our small group that we have. We have so far like 30 something members group. So I wrote down something on Notion about this, but we're looking for someone who can kind of take over that part and just look for new community members, bring together community members we already have, come up with ideas of what we can do in terms of events or like weekly meetups or weekly calls like this one, for example, where people can ask us some questions. What else? Take care of we just set up a Twitter account, so also that's something that should be taken care of. Coming up with any ideas in terms of how to kind of promote that in a way, in an organic way. So we have some funds we can deploy for that. But yeah, I would say mostly to just bring the community that's there already together and find new ideas to bring more members and even come up with ideas, I think, in terms of marketing or social, like if there is a landing page to create, just maybe come out with how that would look, and then we can bring someone in to make it or things like this. So just creating, I would say, the community marketing side of the project that for now is non-existent because we focused more on writing the code so far. So right now that things are kind of coming together on the code side, we're trying to like build up a bit of a community to launch our first project.
Okay. Another question that I have is, what inspired you to start off this project on Near? So what potential do you see for creative coders on Near and creative coding in general?
Yeah. So 3 years ago, I worked on a couple of projects on Ethereum. At the time, like I didn't understand that much, but I just worked on these projects that were not creative coding projects. But I learned a bit of Solidity, and then I learned a bit to make the front end for all of this stuff. And last year, I think I read one of the Mint-based founders' post where he talks a bit about other chains other than Ethereum, because at the time I was like, seems to be only Ethereum, but then I realized there was a lot of chains that were kind of developing and trying different approaches. I tried a few of them, just experimented, I think, for a couple of months, just trying to deploy contracts, see how it works, how it is. I found out that Near was the best for this kind of creative coding project, because it was really developer friendly, and in terms of also of architecture, it still seems like it has a good opportunity to scale. It can scale. So if you start bringing in more people, more projects, and really distributing more creative coding projects, I feel like you can't really do that on Ethereum. Mostly what you see happening on Ethereum is there is a couple of good projects on the creative coding side. I would say Artblocks and Autoglyphs, which was what kind of started on this creative coding on-chain ideas. It was a project from 2 years ago, I think, from Larva Labs. But it was limited, they just tried to push the smart contracts on what they could, and it was still not that much. So I don't think there you can do that much. I think on Near, and also the community, I've been around Near, I think, here now, doing it more full time for the last few months, but I really like the vibes, let's say, and like I'm quite optimistic about things going forward, both in terms of community, both in terms of development.
Yeah. And so curaDAO has created like is creating a set of tools for artists to use in creating coding. Can you tell me maybe a little bit about what is currently available and what is coming next in the future?
Yeah, so the contracts we already have, we built. So the market contract and the NFT contract. Moatam is a guy that's helping us putting these contracts together on a separate repository, so we can bring them to test them better on testnet and then bring them to mainnet in the next weeks. On the front end side, we already have all of the stuff, most of the stuff I talked about. So the kind of a place for users to, you can go to cura.run and try it out, but we have a place for projects to be able to be seen and explored, and you can mint your own project, you can mint your own creative coding project, you can see it, you can explore, you can bid on others' projects, you can view your own bids. So that part, also this kind of, the front end for all of this is already there. I think what was in the slides that's still not there is the studio part, so the creator studio, design studio for the creators. That's what we are working on, but this just got started now that it's more of us working on it, so we're kind of moving faster. But yeah, that I think that's the part missing, and the part about the composable, the front end is already built of components, so they can already be separated and put together. We're still not there in terms of like creator being able to put their own theme and deploy their own front end and put together the pieces. So I feel like the next thing we're focusing on is just the studio, so creators can come and have a playground for their projects on testnet and bring some of them to mainnet. So yeah, most of it I would say is done. It's mostly about at least to release the first few projects. The curator part also that I talked about, in curate the galleries and NFTs. Those are just still like pretty detailed descriptions and issues on the GitHub, but still not implemented. But we definitely also need like something like OpenSea on Near. So that might not happen in the next weeks, but I've been talking with some people at Near to kind of start putting something like that together. Yeah.
Okay. So we have another question from the audience that is, are you looking to hire at the moment or any help that your project needs today?
Yeah, we're looking mostly for a community manager, but if anyone has any skills and wants to help, he can come in. We have a Telegram group. You can just introduce yourself, and we're happy to see if we can find something. I think in terms of like really specific tasks, I would not say there is a really specific task you can do, but we're also looking for beta testers. So if you want to test what we're doing on testnet, you can come in the group. And we also have rewards for that, so we can do that. Also, I would say in terms of writing, we're also looking for someone to write some content about creative coding and about Cura. And yeah, I'd say that's it.
Good. So hopefully someone we'll be able to cooperate and link you up with someone. Another question that just arrived is, I'm interested in using real world data to generate visual patterns. Is this something that I can use Cura for without any coding ability?
Not at the moment. This is a bit more the studio part, so that you can. The idea is you could do a lot of things with these smart contracts. For something like that, you probably need like oracles, which we looked into, but it's also we're a small team, so like integrating an NFT with an oracle is not something we're going to do now. It's more about like on-chain generative art and like browser art, let's say like P5 or if JavaScript libraries. You're probably not going to be able to do something like that. I think in general, anytime soon on Near, in the sense that there is oracles, but you probably, I think you could get started with assembly script and use our contracts to at least see how you can extend the contract, let's say, without breaking it, and see how you can kind of put your code in the contract and how you can deploy it to actually Airwave, and how you can have this kind of like preview of the creative code plus the animation. But yeah, I don't think you can still do something like that, but it's interesting. I mean, we're kind of, that's our goal, is like, if any kind of creative idea that uses the NFT contract, it should be able to kind of be able to put it together from a front end without without a coding background. But yeah, that's probably, I would say, more like into the next year. Yeah.
Okay, great. We do not have other questions, so maybe we can wrap it. So thank you very much, Yassine, for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
I'm sure that a lot of people in the Open Web Sandbox will be very interested in the opportunities available at curaDAO.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, looking forward to see what comes up next.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Ciao, ciao. So